Good evening, everyone. Bezat Hashem today. Good Vach, of course. We're learning Sichos Haran, and let me just put it up. Here we go. 1 second. All right. Today is Sicha 18. פעם אחת סיפרנו עמו מעניין הדפסת ספרים. One time, we were talking with Rabbeinu Zal from this Indian of printing books, ספרים. שבדרך הללו נצרבו מאוד בעלי מדפיסים. That in their generation, a lot of printers went into business. That was the printing industry has grown exponentially. And they are printing a lot of sfarim. From the period of the Rishonim, like Rashi, like the Rambam, the big Achronim. And a lot of people buy, people buy Sfarim. Everybody is buying Sfarim now. So Rabbeinu said that it comes from a very, very basic instinct. The Omer Rabbeinu Zal, Kemura Baseinu in the Gemara Shabbos Kuf Lamed Ches, Asida Torah Shetishtokach V'Yisrael, that it is the fate of Torah to be forgotten from Am Yisrael. So there is an inner impulse which is imprinted by Jewish people. Al ken matpisin sfarim habe. That's why many sfarim are being printed. V'chol echad koine sfarim, and every person buys sfarim. The purpose, the inner impulse that is being satisfied by that, that everybody will have sfarim. The instinct is a very deep-seated, very primordial. So to make sure that Torah should not be forgotten, by the multiplicity of the sfarim that everybody has in his hands. And Rabbeinu says, so even in the house of a tailor, of anybody, every simple person, even now, you have to understand in those days, just before that particular period, Sfarim were literally so rare that you can only find them either in the Besmedrash. Rabbanim had Sfarim in their homes, and traveling was so difficult in those days. They would basically give over, like Reb Nosson brought during his trip to Eretz Yisrael. He took Rabbeinu Sfarim with him, and he wrote to places, that people have never had them before. In the period before, Sfarim were really, really very rare. But in that particular period, even a simple person, a tailor, whatever it is, somebody who doesn't spend his time learning, now books can be found. And everybody, just goes ahead and buys Sfarim. So that everybody will have Sfarim. And the purpose, the impetus, is very holy. The purpose for it is that the Torah will not be forgotten for this. Avena says, however, they are sort of like missing the point. But this is something that, when you just take a look at it, it seems like a super duh moment. But this they don't know. That what? That when you don't learn Torah, you can have a Spurim shrunk in your living room with Chosin Shas and all Rabbeinu Sfarim and everything. But it doesn't help unless you learn. He says now, later the learning of the Torah has fallen greatly. Now learning is very scarce. And when Nelson writes in parentheses, in other words, what good would this multitude of svarim that a person has in his house will help in preventing the Torah from being forgotten, since we don't learn it. I'm not saying about it. This sounds like, as I said before, almost like duh. What do you expect? I mean, obviously, it's so obvious that almost it doesn't need to be said. But the thing that we need to understand, the thing that we need to sort of like internalize. I mean, you can see also today, when there's the Shavua Sefer, the week of the Sefer, and Chabad Baruch Hashem is making. Before the Corona, they used to make it in Binyanei Umah, and thousands upon thousands of people would come and buy Sfarim. But buying Sfarim is not tantamount to learning them. The same thing basically applies to davening. You have a fancy siddur, you have a nice shul, you can buy expensive, I don't know, whatever it is. All these are good things, but we sort of like forget the purpose of it all. Now, we're talking about here not as a cheap admonishment to say to people, yeah, okay, I mean, you can have, a full farm shrunk, but what good does it do to you? And then, unless you learn. But Rabbeinu is actually putting the spotlight on a situation that you realize there is a battle going on here. Excuse me for a minute. There is a battle going on. There is an instinct to buy Sfarim. There's an instinct to go to shul. There's an instinct to build a shul. There's an instinct to get things going. It comes from a very, very deep place inside us. I mean, what do we know? I mean, we have this impetus to go and buy Sfarim, and we don't even know why. I mean, it's almost like the Havdil for Havdalas, when you go to a hardware store, when men go to a hardware store, it's almost like a woman who's going to a clothing store. You're going through the aisles in the hardware store for looking for something that what can you might need. You're looking for something to need. To buy epis a schmitchik, epis a this, something, you're looking for something that you might need. But you're looking for the need. But the truth is that you just want. The impetus with buying Sfarim is so deep-seated in a Jew. I mean, it says it's because of that Indian, because of a Gemara that says, Asidat Torah Shotishtakach Misrael. It's a testament not to the, how silly people are. They buy a lot of Sfarim, and lo and behold, if they don't learn in what good old is fun. This is not the point. Yes, of course it's true. But the point is that it comes to tell you what you really are. When you go to this Yerid of Sfarim, this book fair, whether it's Chabad, whether it's this, whether it's that, and you take a look and you look at the Sfarim and you look at they came up with let's say with Nu Namel Melech with Nekudos, or they come up Dusha Slavi with Perushim, or whatever it is. People are looking for something to want. And it's coming from a very, very deep Nekuda within you. And that particular Nekuda is very important. There is a sphera of Tiferes. Spoke a little bit about Chesed, we talk a little bit about Gvura. The Midah of Tiferes is a combination of Chesed and Gvura. The neshama of Chesed is love. The neshama of Gvura is strength. Tiferes is not a compromise between the two. Because a compromise basically means that every side is giving in something, but they're not neglecting their initial position. I'm willing to give something up in order so we can move forward, but this is not what I want. This is not what Tiferes is. Tiferes is a marriage of Chesed and Gvura. This is when they combine to create something new. Something which is more complete than either of them. Each one of them gives his nakuda, his inyan, his attribute, what he's good at. And together they create something which is greater than either of them. Interestingly enough, this is why Arizal explains that the neshama of Tiferes, whose main midah is rachamim, is compassion, is mercy. The neshama of Tiferes is the das. When we talk about the das, the normal translation of the word das is knowledge. But knowledge is a very crude word to describe das. Das means active wisdom. Means applied wisdom. It means the capacity to interpret reality as it coming your way. You have a das, you have a radar dish that measures what is this, what is coming my way, how do I deal with it, how do I integrate it with who I am and what I need it for. The level of das is the level where you understand where you're at and what's going on. The nature of rachamim is where a situation which is complete, which is perfect, which is full, let's say like a wealthy man or a wise man, has compassion on somebody who is lacking. A rich man on a poor man, a teacher on a student, a father on a child, and so forth and so on. But in order for the rachamim to actually happen, three things need to happen. Because it's not only that you need to have rachamim on somebody else. You also need to have rachamim on yourself. In order to have rachamim, you need to recognize the wealthy. In other words, the wealthy man has to recognize himself as a wealthy man that can afford to give. The poor man has to be recognized as somebody who is poor. And a connection point between the two needs to be achieved. Anybody who has ever collected money knows that if you just come to somebody and you say, listen, I need whatever it is, and you don't connect with him on a human level, he may give you something that he gives to everybody. But you're not really going to collect, to get from him a real nesina, as it was. But and the successful mashalachim know this, this technique. They go to the rich person. What they do is they create a point of connection, a point of in which we are both, it's a human being. It's not a human being. It could be a mutual problem. It could be, all of a sudden there's a connection between them. So once there's a realization of the rich man know that he is rich, and the poor man is recognized as being needy, as being lacking, and there is an emotional connection, nekuda of connection between them, this enables the enactment of rachamim, of compassion. Whereas there's a feel and which follows with an action of giving. For instance, I'll give you a shtickle mashal here. Let's say that You go in the street, and you see a guy sitting there, collecting money, sitting there on the floor, maybe with a, I don't know, a hat or whatever it is, and he's collecting money. So you feel a shtickle, maybe you're feeling a little guilty. Here I am, having a good life. But at least I have whatever it is that I need. And there's a guy who, doesn't have anything. So you sort of like, you don't know. Maybe he's an imposter. Maybe he's this. Maybe he's that. I don't know. Uh, uh, but imagine that you find out that this guy is actually a son of a very big rabbi. And he has fallen. And this is where he's at. All of a sudden, there's this big rachamim that is coming. At that point of connection, you know something about him. You get a certain kind of perspective of where he's coming from, where he's falling to. The reaction is rachamim. If you don't feel any connection to him, the money that you give him is very important. It's very good, but it's more like ransom, like guilty money. You give him money because I feel guilty that I have it. He doesn't, so I'm giving him, a piastra or two, whatever. It's just, just to quieten my own guilt. But there's really no connection. There really is no rachamim. What Rabbeinu is coming here and is telling us, and he's saying the same thing in Torah Zayin Chelik Beis. Our problem is that we don't realize who we really are, where we're coming from, that we are the son of this big rabbi called the Kadosh Baruch Hu. All right. No. It's not all right. The minute you say, a very big rabbi, I'm a son of big, I didn't know I was a son of big rabbi. Kadosh Baruch Hu, okay. We don't know who we are on one side. In other words, we don't know what we're supposed to be. What is befitting each and every one of us to be? We have no idea. Because you realize there are certain things you do know about yourself, right? There may be certain things which are tempting for somebody to do, but I don't do because I don't do these things. Each and every one of us has, certain standard, for lack of another word. I don't go below that. The fact that I actually go ahead and do things that I shouldn't be doing is because it is not at all clear to me how precious I am. So that's the first thing that is not clear to us. In our own mind, in order for us to have Rahmanas on ourselves, we need to understand the level of the wealthy man, who we're supposed to be, who we really are, what we were born for. And on the other hand, which is another something we're definitely not clear at, we don't have a clear picture of what we're really doing. there's a certain kind of a mishmash going on. There's a certain kind of a chaos going on inside us. A certain kind of awareness, a suspicion, an opinion inside us is, it feels like it's bumping from wall to wall. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not really doing it. I'm this. I should do this, or no, I should do that, or this should be done, or that should be done. We don't really realize what we're actually doing. Why am I eating? Why am I eating? Something that tastes good. What do you mean? Why eating that? Who doesn't eat something that tastes good? Everybody does. But that's time of Sechila. Right. What does this right mean? What does it say? Really, what is it saying? This, right. It is, I know. In our own minds, because we're not clear on who we are, and we're not clear on what we actually do, we sort of make up for it with a certain kind of like, I'm holding by that, or I'm not holding by that. Yeah, it's time Sechila, but man, I'm not holding there. It's like this is not where I'm at. It's like and when I say to myself, this is time Sechila, man, I say a somewhat embarrassed way. But in my own head, I'm saying, that's not where I'm at. This is not what this is all about. I mean, it's what it's all about, yeah, but it's not for me. All right, at least not yet. What do I mean that it's not for me? At least not yet. And when? And for whom it's not for me? The answer is I don't know my mala, my mila. I don't know my own preciousness. And I don't know, I'm not aware of how I'm actually behaving. It sounds like, man, this guy is just like hugging a China. You know that every single word that you listen about, from the world outside, I'm not talking about medical information or things like this, but I don't know, Trump did this, Netanyahu said that, or anything that you hear from the outside world is lowering my Yerushalayim. Imperceptibly, I don't know. I don't feel that, oh man, I feel the Yerushalayim oozing off me. No, I don't feel that. Let me just take a quick look here. I just want to, I think that I forgot to send. I don't feel that the Yerushalayim oozes off me. But it's exactly what it does. I remember hearing the disciple said many, many years ago. I mean, then obviously there were no computers, but there were television. And the disciple said if somebody passes by a television store and just glimpses on the television, it already cools off his Yerushalayim. And I felt like, oh man, give me a break. What do you mean, give me a break? It's exactly what happens. Everything I see, everything I hear lowers my Yerushalayim. Because when somebody's talking, when is saying something, when you see what they do, when you hear what they say, you are getting their essence from them. And what it does, it confuses me. It confuses me. It makes me unclear about what my true value is. I don't even realize what it is I'm doing. What's the big deal? I mean, what? So I cannot enact rachamim. I cannot generate compassion in me for myself. Every single day, every single day that we live is another day closer to leaving this world. Rabbeinu says it even more bluntly. He says people don't realize that they die every day. When the days pass, they have died that day. Finished. Which means there is no time. No such thing as not yet. So why am I doing this? So why do I live in this kind of... And the main trick, by the way, is not to start looking who else is doing it wrong. My wife is using a smartphone, or my kid is doing this. That's not where it starts. It starts with you. It starts with me. It doesn't start with somebody else. The definition of a fanatic is somebody who is makel chet on somebody else's chest. It's all their fault. They're the ones who are guilty that everything is wrong and nothing is wrong in the world. This lack of clarity, who am I? Vis-a-vis how I'm behaving, is the reason that I don't have Rahmanas on myself. And this is what Rabbeinu is bringing out in this particular inyan. People are buying Svarim. People are buying Svarim. When you take a look at the Sicha, it comes looking like Rabbeinu is making fun of everybody. Everybody's buying Svarim because, you know, Asira Israel, the Torah is going to be forgotten, you know, but they, you know, the silly Megusas, they don't realize it, they don't learn it. You know, the Torah is going to be forgotten, it's not going to help. But something much deeper is being said here. That impetus to buy Svarim in you is because of what it says in the Gemara, which doesn't even dawn, doesn't even cross your mind when you feel this impetus to buy the book, this mashiach, this pull to buy Svarim. The mashiach to buy Svarim comes because of how precious you are, what you really are, where you really should be. But the fact that I don't learn is where I really am. So what I do, being that I live in this ambiguous world where I don't know what I'm supposed to be and I don't realize what it is I'm actually doing, that I find myself a certain kind of a feel-good solution. You know what I do? I go ahead and I buy this farm and I put them at this farm trunk and I don't touch them. Somehow I have solved a dissonance between me and myself. I felt the need, satisfied this need, I'm done. This is a continuation on this, or the Sicha that we had, I think, 2 weeks ago, that the Rebbe spoke about, or 3 weeks ago, the Rebbe spoke about learning Torah. You are meant to learn Torah. You are meant to learn Torah. So what you need to do is you need to start learning Torah. But what can you do if you, I don't know, feel like ADD? I am, for instance. I'm like fizzling. I can't concentrate for more than 3 minutes. You learn for 3 minutes. And then you take another sefer, you learn 3 minutes, and then another sefer, 3 minutes. And if you can learn Gemara, Be'iyun, the SRO comes to tell us, listen, that's not called learning, that's not learning, you're just going over it. So that's what you can do. You're learning Torah. Learning Torah does not mean that you have to succeed in learning Torah. To have success in learning Torah, you should go deep. Adam, if you can, Vada is good. But Rashi says, how much you are made in it, you should work at it. And the secret of success, the difference, the thing that differentiates between people who are successful and people that are not successful, that are, as we said on Thursday, people that are lethargic and just sort of like move at the edges of flag. These are not the leaders, these are not the people who are moving the torch. Is clarity. Successful people are clear. They know what their goal is, and they stick to it. And they go after it. The thing that creates clarity is dibur, is tefillah, is baidus. A person who is doing his baidus every single day knows that everything's possible. There's no such thing as impossible. Every problem has a solution, unless, of course, it's not a problem. And you'll find it when you speak to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Because when you come and you talk to Hashem, if you come to Hashem and say, listen, Hashem, I have a problem, I have a problem, I have a problem. Okay, so after a while, you see that it's not changing, and you're asking Hashem to change it. If you start by saying, first of all, thank you for this problem. And then you ask Hashem to remove the problem, the thank you changes your perspective. So the more you talk about it, the more das you get, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu can give you a das that it's not a problem at all, but rather these are the conditions with which you need to serve the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Somebody that in a wheelchair knows he can't play soccer. There's no, it's no longer, why is this guy a better soccer player than I am? Soccer is not for me, nikuda. But the point is that with the Dibur create clarity. So the thing that you need to be clear about, specifically about what Rabbeinu says here, in this particular sikha, is you have an incredible holy impetus in you. Get an inkling from that about who and what you really are. You go to a farm fair and you have an instinct to buy all the farm that you see. It doesn't happen in Barnes and Noble. I mean, you may look for something. Somebody might look for something in Barnes and Noble, something interesting, whatever. But when you go to a farm fair, you're talking about buying something that you already have. Maybe there's a Shulchan Aruch, which is a more Mahudadik edition. Maybe there's something that you already have the Sefer at home. Because you have that, you are a holy, holy being. You're a son of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So you need to talk about that. I need to speak a Kodesh Baruch Hu to make it clear to me about who I am. That clarity comes drip by drip. It becomes clearer and clearer still. And you need to be able to look at what life is. What am I doing? What am I really doing? You may not stop doing it in a day, or in 2, or in 3. But at least, first of all, be aware. What am I holding as far as davening is concerned? What am I holding as far as learning is concerned? Because you can be sure of one truth. If you're not clear of what it is that you ought to be doing, who you are, and what you're meant for, and you're not clear on what you actually be doing, there are 3 parts to a person. I think that there's the body and the ego and the neshama, let's say, okay? The body wants to do what feels good. The ego wants you to do what looks good. And your neshama wants you to do the right thing. So if I'm a state of chaos and I don't know how valuable I am, how precious I am, all my days I was, and when I speak to my wife, she makes me feel like a schnook, like a no-goodnik. It makes me feel inadequate and so forth and so whatever it is. So I get, everybody always made me feel like this. My parents made me feel like this. My wife made me feel like this. My children made me feel like this. And so inevitably I start doing what my body wants and what my ego wants. What do you want to do? There's no clarity. I don't realize who the rich guy is. What am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? I don't realize how broken I am. The poor guy, sitting down in the street, eating cake, cream puffs, and juicy steaks, and looking at things I shouldn't, and spending money I shouldn't, and doing whatever it is that I'm living in an insane way. As long as there's no clarity, I'll keep on doing what feels good and what looks good. That's it. It's inevitable. So the first thing that we need to do is daven for clarity. Rabbeinu said it in quite a few places. Ibn Nosson said it very bluntly, Likutei Tfilos. Rabbeinu says, I'm a birya kol shabayam. I'm the highest creation above all the supernal realms and olamas. Vazlinan lepuma de leviosan, and where I'm being taken to be fed to this mulch machine. They're producing mulch, they put woods in it. Shemirach of purgatory, one way or another. I need to recognize that I'm birya kol shabayam. I'm the highest creation there is. I am the reason HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. I'm meant to learn Torah. I'm meant to work on my midas. So I'm I'm finding, this kind of being that I'm not clear in a position, so what do? I buy Wagyu beef or whatever, but it's glatt kosher. I sort of try to hold the stick at both ends. Rabbeinu says it doesn't achieve the trick. It only quietens your conscience. That you figure, I'm a middle of the roader. I belong. All the time. The Rambam says I'm cheat of the Rambam. I'm in the middle of the road. I'm not too much to one side, not too much. I'm not sitting. I'm in the middle. A good place in the middle. It's a shtus. It's a nechama shel hevel. It's a consolation. It's an empty consolation. In the meantime, the clock is ticking. Dafka now, in the 3 weeks, it's a good time to think of it, because the one thing that 3 weeks do is they slow things down. It's a time of reflection. Being that I have no clarity, I want this period to just pass as quickly as possible, just be over already. But I'm missing the point. I'm missing the essence of what the spirit is all about. I can get clarity. Rabbeinu says, that the inyan of the Churban is a lamentation for the stalkos of the tzaddik. We'll talk about it before Tisha B'Av. But it says the main loss is that we don't have the eyesight. Rabbeinu says we lost the ability to see who we are and where we are holding. This is what this is about. And to get the clarity is simple. It's right under your nose. Literally. It's your mouth. Talk to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Speak to him. Ask him for clarity. Ask him. Ask him. You can tell him what you see. You can tell him what you don't see. You can tell him your confusions. But ask him for clarity. To realize how precious you are and what you really need to be, what you really need to do. Because it's so easy to get caught up in the rush of life, in what the body wants and what the ego wants, instead of what the neshama wants. And it's not just like do the right thing, It's, the clock is ticking. There are no second chances. The Stapler said, Rabbeinu says that this is what every Shaman needs to do it every single day to Olam Adon. Person needs to see, there is Olam Haba, there is Olam Haba. There is Olam Haba, there is Gehenna, there's Gan Eden, there's Gehenna. The Stapler says that the biggest problem with chinuch is that parents don't tell their children about Gehenna. Yeah, there is such a thing. In other words, be afraid. If you have seichel, be afraid. Rabbeinu says that's the beginning of Avodas Hashem. Yiras Einish. Know who you're supposed to be. Take a look at what you're actually doing. And generate true Rachmanis on yourself. And what you can't change, come to Kodesh Baruch Hu, talk to him, ask him. Everything becomes possible. And even if you don't change it, even if talking about it to Kodesh Baruch Hu for a while does not change it yet or at all, it's okay. Because you're Oisek B'tshuva. You're doing what you need to be doing. You don't necessarily write 100% about what you're supposed to be. Nobody knows what it's supposed to be. Maybe you're exaggerating. Maybe the stuff that you think that you ought to be doing, or you shouldn't, whatever it is, something you can't help. It's all possible. But what you need to bring to the table is the sense of responsibility. I know what is going on. I have a vision of who I am and where I'm supposed to be. I have very clear in realistic look and how I'm behaving. And this tefillah is the application of the Rachmanas. Okay, with this Mezrat Hashem, we will finish for tonight, and we'll meet in Yitz Hashem on Monday in Sipurei Maisius.